I'm joined today in the studio by Luna Lupin and Sallieann Harrison. Sorry to have her upstage you. But you've joined us because, like me, you love machine applique, but in particular wool.
Yes, I really love wool applique, yeah.
Which gives us this lovely naive look, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do it both by hand and by machine, and I've recently started to combine the two as well, which has worked really well.
Yes. Oh, well, I love both. I must say I do love my sewing machine. And Luna Lupin is made also on the sewing machine, but using the same stitch.
Yes, using the same sort of stitch, the blanket stitch, to stitch her main body together. Yeah. So
yes.
that's saved a lot of time.
I bet. Yeah, she's really lovely. I'm going to move her out of the way though, because I would like to talk more about the work we've got in front, which are some examples of the wool applique that you enjoy doing, all on the sewing machine. So yeah, blanket stitch, straight stitch.
Straight stitches, blanket stitch, a little bit of hand stitching thrown in around the rick-rack, and some French knots.
Yeah. But so you're mixing the sort of hand embroidery look with the speed of the sewing machine. And this one must have been a real joy to do, because you've got the lovely traditional blanket stitch petals.
Yes.
Is this on top of a pieced background?
Yeah, so this is a pieced background, so there's diamonds in the background, and they're all pieced first of all. So I pieced a background, and then I superimposed the actual petals on top. If you notice, the petals actually hide all the seams, and it comes out to be like a flower design.
Yeah.
So it's felted wool fused down and then just sewn using a perle 12 thread on the sewing machine to achieve that effect.
Brilliant. And we've got London Bus.
Yeah, this is one of my own designs, and that one's sewn entirely on the sewing machine. That one is actually, not only is the applique, the felted wool applique to the surface, it also doubled to quilt it as well. So I've gone through all three layers. So there's the applique wool, then there's the cotton background, then there's a little piece of batting, very, very thin batting, and the backing. And then what I did is I just went all the way around the edge and effectively sewed down the applique and quilted it at the same time.
So it's sort of quilt as you go.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it looks as though it kept it really stable too.
Yeah, it kept it very stable. And then again, in this one, I've used a blanket stitch. I've also used a straight stitch and done a little bit of hand stitching for the six Victoria and the bus.
Yeah, lovely little picture. And this gorgeous piece in the frame here is you were saying also a fusion, as it were, of different techniques.
Yes. So this is comes from a book by a lady called Lisa Bongier, in it from Primitive Gatherings. It's her design, and I've sewn it using a machine blanket stitch. You can also see there's some straight stitches in there as well.
Yeah.
And then there's some hand stitching, so it's all in the same project. And the actual words as well, they would have been hand stitched in using a chain stitch. But this was the first piece that I did where I combined hand stitching and machine stitching in the same project. And I really enjoyed doing it, and the way that it came out. One of the things I developed as I was going along with the leaves, so I would straight stitch in those leaves, the veins on the sewing machine, and then I would use another Valdani thread to actually wrap around them, so in and out of the stitch, to sort of create a raised surface.
So that would be by hand?
Yeah, by hand,
sort of like whipped running.
Yeah, it's like a whip stitch through the stitches, and that came out really well.
Yeah. No, it's really quite beautiful.
It's a very Christmassy piece.
The framing, yes. And your other love, you were saying, a small pieced projects, I'm going to call them.
Yeah, so with looking at the quilt behind me, that's like 3,500 tumblers, tiny pieces.
I'm so glad I didn't read your pattern first.
People always say to me, how long did it take you? And I think,
what?
No.
A few hours here and there.
It was like an every morning job for a couple of months, well, for probably about 6 months. I got up each morning and sewed a row, so it was a row at a time. And it's amazing how it sort of came out in the end.
Oh, it's beautiful, and you've got a wibbly edge as well.
People have admired the wibbly edge. They stopped because the edge actually goes in and out all the way down the sides.
With the tumblers.
With the tumblers, because it's cut on the bias. The binding's actually cut on the bias, so it creates a little whipped edge going at the side.
But and these little guys that are in front of us?
Yes, so I've got a whole wall at home of little quilts. I love making little quilts with little pieces. partly because I've got a British home, which is very small.
Yes.
And haven't really got any room for big quilts. But yeah, so this is the sort of thing I make. Sort of quite vintage looking.
Yes.
And I free motion quilt them with an invisible thread. And I tend to sort of dip them and tea dye them a little bit so that you get that vintage look.
Yes.
And then I'll tumble dry them, and it creates like a texture in them,
They
which
do.
people seem to like. It's very touchy-feely sort
Very.
of texture.
Yes. Yes. It does remind me of the antique Welsh quilts that I was fortunate enough to go and see it with Jen Jones. Exactly that, and the touchy-feely.
Yes,
Lots
yeah.
of DNA over them.
Yeah,
It's really lovely.
And I also like to create things where there's a little bit of a surprise. I don't like things that are really perfect. I like things that are a little bit quirky. So you've probably noticed in this block that I've actually turned some bits around, that the blocks are not identical. There's the odd block that actually stands out, but I'll let you work that one out.
And our cushion over there is vintage, you said?
Yes, and the other thing I do is I work with vintage fabrics quite a bit. I like to sort of salvage vintage pieces. So that's part of, this one is part of a tablecloth.
Look.
So I've just cut out the background. And then
Fantastic.
I've surrounded it. These are some Liberty print fabric strips.
Well, may I? Folded?
Yeah, folded strips.
Lovely.
Which
With a
creates sort of a
texture.
bit of texture. And then
Yeah.
I've free motioned as well, a bit in the background.
What a great use of a little piece of embroidery. Can I turn it over
Yeah.
to show them the back?
And then
Look at that.
that's the back. Again, a piece of vintage lace given to me by a friend, and a button back
Oh,
on the
that's
cushion.
really so lovely. That's so lovely. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today, and we look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you.